So in the last video, we covered compound interest. In this video, we're going to cover what the natural number e is. And it sort of is, doing compound interest was sort of a good sort of transition into e. So what is e? Okay, what is e? What e is, it's basically the growth rate. It's basically a growth rate at which things grow continuously. And what I mean by continuously is that they grow at every single microscopic second, even as we're breathing, even as we're thinking, even as we're walking or doing anything. The growth is actually happening. So here's kind of the e value, right? Is, as we said, as I'm sure you know, it's equal to 2.718, and it sort of just goes forever. It's one of these irrational numbers. So just to sort of maybe get an idea, using the compound interest example, let's sort of discover what e is. So let's just use our formula again for the compound interest. Was AF, so the final amount is equal to the initial amount plus 1 plus r over n to the power of nt. So say for example, let's go back to kind of our statements. All right. So let's say here's a statement, right? And here's the n. So for example, if I said, compounded yearly, right? In other words, it's compounded once a year. So the amount of interest paid is only once every year. Okay. What if I had said compounded monthly? Compounded monthly, right? So if it's compounded monthly, that means the interest rate is actually compounded 12 times a year. So it's basically the same interest but divided by 12. What happens if it's compounded daily? If it's compounded daily, that means you get paid interest 365 days a year. You get paid a very small amount of interest every day, but you get paid interest every single day. So what E is what happens if you were compounded continuously. In other words, every living, breathing second or microsecond. What if you're compounded, continuously? If you're compounded continuously, in other words, n is basically infinite, right? It just goes towards infinity. And so when something goes towards infinity and is compounded towards infinity, that's when it reaches this growth rate of E, which is, sort of 2.718. So that's just to give you an idea of what E is. For practical purposes, pretty much in our exercises, they'll just tell you that y is equal to e to the power of x. And what that means is you have a growth rate of 2.718. So instead of writing 2.718 to the power of x, they just write e to the x. All right, so I hope that clarified some things. In the next video, we're going to go over logarithms and some of the most basic rules we need to solve logarithms.